Wow! And it is all over!
Hello! I want to play a game.
You guys down to play a game? Alright, cool. Me too. This particular game is called Who Deserves the Next Title Shot More? Yoel Romero or Jared Cannonier? Choices. Now I gotta be honest, I think you could make an argument for either fighter as far as who is more deserving of the next title shot against Israel Adesanya. In my mind, there's definitely a clear-cut front runner in Paulo Costa, but unfortunately he's injured. I think he had a bicep surgery maybe, so apparently he's going to be out for at least like 6 months, I believe is what I heard. Which leaves us once again to Yoel Romero or Jared Cannonier. Now let's keep it real, guys. If I had to compare Yoel Romero to another fighter in the UFC as far as deserved or undeserved title shots go, I guess you could compare him to two different fighters. Number one, Frankie Edgar. Number two, Uriah Faber. Now I absolutely love Uriah Faber. He's one of my favorite fighters, if not my favorite. But let's keep it real. Between Frankie Edgar and Uriah Faber, both of them have had more than their fair share of title shots in the UFC. And being completely non-biased, even in Uriah Faber's case, I gotta keep it real and say probably not all those title shots were actually legit or actually earned. There's probably more deserving challengers out there at that certain point in time, but both Uriah Faber and Frankie Edgar are big names. They got their fair share of title shots, and they also lost their fair share of title shots. Which brings us to Yoel Romero. He is right up there with Frankie Edgar and Uriah Faber as far as deserved or undeserved, whichever way you want to take it, title shots go. Now right off the bat, a lot of people, myself included, feel that Yoel Romero probably edged out the second Robert Whittaker fight, which in some people's eyes meant he should have been the champion all along, but that's not the case, because do not forget that he did not make championship weight for that fight, so even if he won, technically he would not have been the champion. So that little argument is pretty much moot, pretty much pointless. Either way, like I said, one didn't win. He wasn't going to be the champion because he missed weight. Now, if you look at Yoel Romero's past 4 fights, he's technically lost 3 out of the last 4, including the last 2. The most recent one being to Paulo Costa, which was also a very close fight. There's definitely a lot of people out there that scored it for Yoel Romero, and quite a few others, including the judges and including myself, that think Paulo Costa edged out the fight. So that was his most recent fight. The winner of that fight was pretty much guaranteed the next title shot, and obviously Paulo Costa won. He was going to get the title shot, and then, like I said earlier, he's injured, which removes him from the title shot, at least for the time being. So the fight before that was the Robert Whittaker fight that I just talked about, which was a split decision loss for Yoel Romero, and like I already mentioned, a lot of people think he won, but like I also mentioned, it wouldn't matter because he didn't make weight. The fight before that was his fight against Luke Rockhold, in which he won via impressive KO, but let's go ahead and put that win into perspective real quick. If you take a look at Luke Rockhold's most recent 4 fights, he lost 3 out of those 4, and he was violently knocked out in 3 of those 4, which includes that Yoel Romero fight and his most recent fight against Jan Blachowicz. So, not really sure how much stock you can put in that win. Take it for what it is. Luke Rockhold undoubtedly was one of the best middleweights, in my opinion, of all time, but it's kind of unfortunately looking like his chin is shot these days, so knocking him out doesn't mean quite what it used to back in the day. So then we back it up to Yoel Romero's last fight before that, which was the first Robert Whittaker fight, which once again was a close fight. Some people scored it for Yoel Romero. I personally scored that one for Robert Whittaker. I think he did more in the fight. I think he deservedly won it, although it was close. Yoel Romero's fight before that was a fight against Chris Weidman, which is kind of in the same boat as far as I'm concerned as the Luke Rockhold win. Both Luke Rockhold and Chris Weidman have looked pretty bad lately, to put it bluntly. They both undoubtedly were at the top of the middleweight division for quite a while, and both of them within their past like 5 fights have just absolutely fallen off a cliff. They're both getting finished left and right. So once again, I'm not really sure how much you can draw from that victory for Yoel Romero. At this point, you guys can probably see where I'm going. I like Yoel Romero as a fighter, no doubt. He's very fun to watch. But the dude has absolutely had his fair share of title shots, especially recently, including his most recent fight against Paulo Costa, which, like I said, was a title eliminator fight. And according to the judges and a decent amount of people, he lost the fight. So how can you rationalize giving a guy that lost 3 out of his last 4 fights another title shot. The only argument I really have for it is a lot of those fights were super close, and the champion Israel Adesanya personally asked for this matchup. So depending on how the UFC feels about that, I can definitely see them giving Yoel Romero the next shot because Izzy himself asked for it. Yoel Romero always puts on exciting fights. He's a fan favorite. And once again, even though he technically lost 3 out of his last 4, like I've said many times, they were very competitive fights. Now that we covered Yoel Romero, let's talk about the other fighter in contention for the next title shot, Jared Cannonier. Now, Jared Cannonier was at light heavyweight for a while in the UFC. 3 fights ago, he moved down to the middleweight division, and since then, he has been undefeated, perfect 3-0, with those 3 wins coming against David Branch, Anderson Silva, and most recently, Jack Hermansson, which that fight, I gotta keep it real, I was extremely impressed by, mostly because Jack Hermansson himself has looked so great lately. His fight before the Jared Cannonier fight was the fight that he absolutely dominated Jakari in, wherever the fight went, even in the grappling, which was incredibly impressive. I thought Jack Hermansson was going to win that fight because of how great he's looked lately, but Jared Cannonier shut him down and finished him via TKO in the second round. And in my opinion, that's far more impressive than anything Yoel Romero has done in his past couple fights. Jared Cannonier's fight before the Hermansson fight was against Anderson Silva. Obviously, Anderson, arguably, in my opinion, the greatest middleweight of all time, is not in his prime anymore. He's definitely on a downward spiral in his career. With that said, though, he still is pretty competitive in all his recent fights, and the first round was pretty close. But man, those leg kicks that Jared Cannonier were throwing were brutal. I had a feeling they were going to take their toll, and eventually in the second round, that proved to be the case. He threw one of them right on the inside of Anderson's knee, and that was all she wrote. So that was a very impressive finish in my opinion, because like I said, although Anderson Silva undoubtedly is on a downward spiral at this point in his career, he's still been very competitive in all of his fights, and finishing him is still absolutely impressive, especially considering Israel Adesanya, the current champ, couldn't finish Anderson himself in a fight that wasn't too long ago. So, with all that said, the question remains, who is more deserving of the next title shot against Israel Adesanya since Paulo Costa is injured? Yoel Romero or Jared Cannonier? I think, and I hope, that you guys can probably guess who I'm leaning towards based on everything I've covered in this video so far. If you can't, my choice would definitely be Jared Cannonier because of all the things I've already talked about. With that said, let me know what your thoughts are. Who do you think is more deserving of the next title shot? Yoel Romero or Jared Cannonier? Let me know down below. And whoever you choose, why do you think they're more deserving? I look forward to reading your answers. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.
My goodness!
Oh my God!
Just like that!
That is some serious power!